What skills do you feel like you gained from the class and the jam as a whole?
I feel that I gained a lot of communication and teamwork skills with working with so many different people with different experiences.
I definitely got a lot better at analyzing research, reading different research papers. Dr. Katie Jarrell was really good with how she taught reading different papers. I learned a whole new strategy that I'd never heard before. I was also able to understand it better and read it quicker. So that was a huge benefit to me.
I'm not a coder, so I got to look at the code and see how it worked behind the scenes. Got to see how my PNG files got into the game engine. Very foreign to me, so.
Most stuff I do is very logical. It's challenging me to come up with new dialogue or ideas, which also helped me develop my creative skills and working as part of a team too.
Where do you see yourself applying the knowledge and skills that you learned from this class?
Basically, immediately in my future courses, I would also need to apply this in my future career. Just having a variety of things that I'm able to do. The knowledge of Unity and learning about things and reading documentation is definitely a good skill to have.
Just the teamwork and collaboration skills. I want to go into either production management or just somewhere in the entertainment field, and teamwork is huge in that, especially when it gets close to the deadline and it's crunch time.
What are some of the differences between what you've learned in this class versus other classes that you've taken?
So this one was definitely a lot more hands-on. In a lot of the other classes, even though they have you apply your skills and code out the project, there's usually defined goals that you have in mind. While for this project, we had a very somewhat vague prompt, and just that we need to convey the research in a meaningful way. I had to basically brainstorm with my team to come up with a good idea and then implement that.
This class taught me the scholarly side of research in games and animation and different entertainment fields, whereas my courses are very focused on the actual getting your hands dirty. How does it happen? This course was very focused on how do we take those skills, that making it happen, and how do we make it something that's bigger than that? How do we make it something that teaches people something new? How do we make it something that'll have a real world impact?
How has the course changed your perspective on scientific research as a whole?
I used to think of research as a lot more of a dry field where it was just about scientists sharing just information in their own academic circles. But with this course, I also learned that you could apply research in more interesting ways by spreading it through mediums like video games that would be a little more interactive for general audiences.
This course has definitely changed it from my perspective on scientific research from being just something that the academics are holed away in their little lab creating their information, whereas now I realize that it's something that people like me, people who aren't necessarily doing the research, can still help translate that to people who need to learn the information in a very accessible way so that anyone can understand the cutting edge of what's happening in the labs.
Scientific research to me was very mathematical, and I didn't really connect it with cultural aspects of life. So I really thought all of the articles that I read in this class were interesting because I got to learn more about Indigenous culture. I thought this was a good combination of both very sciencey parts of research, but also the cultural aspect.
What did you learn about teaching scholarly research to a broader audience through this experience? What kind of challenges did you come up against while you were doing that?
I learned to focus on a broader audience, but also to try to define that audience as a specific type of people so that you were able to share to more than just the academic audience, but not have it be super broad to the point where there was no clear purpose.
While we had the skills, it was still our first time participating in a game jam or making a game or different aspects that came into creating the project. It was a balancing act between creating this fun game and also one that accurately conveyed the research.
I know that there's a lot of video games that talk about dystopian things like The Last of Us with the end of the world but I never really thought, you could definitely apply actual research to these games to make them more accessible to other people. Accessibility was one of my big things because I struggled a lot reading the research because it's just so dense and it's so complex. And so having a video game to explain that was just so much easier to comprehend. Yeah, creating this was definitely helpful for me too.